going to continue our trip through wisdom literature in the Bible. We covered Psalms last week, and today we'd like to look at Proverbs. If you want to open your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 1, that is where we'll begin. Like apples of gold and settings of silver is a wide word fitly spoken, he says. The book of Proverbs is a unique book. It falls into our category of wisdom literature that we started last week. Not law, it's not narrative story, it's not commands. It's not the stories of people throughout the Old Testament. This is wisdom literature. It's trying to impart understanding, looking at God from an earth view up instead of God's view of man looking down. And Proverbs is a fantastic example of that, as we will see here. The book of Proverbs, let's get into the background of it. The author was Solomon, mostly at least. Solomon probably uniquely qualified to write this book. As you will recall, he was given extraordinary wisdom from God himself. God came down to him early in his reign as king of Israel and said, I will give you whatever you want. And Solomon replies, well, he says, I'm just a kid. I don't really know what I'm doing here. Please give me the wisdom I need to govern your people well. I've been given a huge responsibility. I'm taking over this country from my dad, King David, but I don't know what I'm doing. I need your wisdom to govern your people in a good way. And God says, I am super pleased with that request, and I will give you so much wisdom you won't know what to do with it all, plus a whole bunch of other stuff too. But Solomon, amazingly brilliant guy. People came from, dignitaries from all over the world came to visit him just to hear him and see his society and the city that God had given him. So when he writes about wisdom and explains what wisdom is, he's the guy you want to hear it from. The readers, of course, initially would have been Old Testament Israel, but it applies pretty much equally to everybody because it's not really culturally or historically based in terms of talking about a specific time frame. This is a very universal book. It's easily applicable to anybody at any time. The setting of the book, well, again, since there's really no tie to any specific events or people in the book, there's not really a whole bunch of setting that applies to the book, so there's not anything special we really need to understand in terms of history when we read through the book of Proverbs. And the message is this: choosing wisdom over foolishness will produce a life more pleasing to both God and to man. So let's dive into the book, shall we? Proverbs chapter 1 through 9 it's almost like an extended introduction to the book, kind of. This section describes the battle for the simple, those who lack judgment. When we say simple, we don't just mean not complicated. That's how we usually use the word today. But simple just means naive, uneducated, just starting out, wet behind the ears. They don't really know what they're doing. They haven't thought through life yet. Which way do I want to go? What do I want to do with my life? What are my values? The simple person hasn't really thought through these issues and these truths yet. They haven't really assigned a direction to their life. They haven't committed to one way or the other. They're still making up their mind about life. And Proverbs appeals to the simple person, as we'll get into in the next couple chapters. It's a battle between foolishness and wisdom. And these two opposing value systems compete for the minds of all who pass by. Everyone must choose which philosophy they will follow. This is really the purpose of the book, which is stated in the first 7 verses of the book. In fact, Solomon writes exactly why he put this book together. Chapter 1, verse 1 says, the Proverbs of Solomon, son of David, king of Israel. And here's why he wrote the book. Verse 2, to know wisdom and instruction is to understand words of insight, is to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Remember that parallel stuff in poetry we talked about last week or the week before where you restate the same thing in the same verse? That's what we see here, by the way. Verse 5, let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and the riddles. When wise people say things, you kind of scratch your head and go, what? It's to help you understand these things. This is why he wrote the book, to give instruction and guidance to the person who hasn't really thought through their life yet, who doesn't know what's going on, who can't tell right from wrong or good from bad or smart from dumb. This is the book for them because it's here to instruct and to guide them in that way. And he concludes this little introductory passage here with verse 7, and this is a very important verse. He says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. What does that even mean? Can you not have a lot of knowledge and not fear God? You can have a lot of knowledge and not fear God, right? There's a lot of smart people out there who are not believers. It'd be silly for us to stand up here and say everybody that doesn't follow God is stupid. That's not true. But in terms of understanding life and wisdom and what's important and what's not, you really have to have a fear of God, or else you're starting with a wrong viewpoint. I see a couple of gun enthusiasts over here to my left, and I know the guys had a gun outing here lately. I'm not a big gun guy. I have nothing against it. But what I do know is this. If you want that bullet to hit the target at the far end of the range, or the little clay disc thingy flying through the air, if you want the bullet to hit the target, there's one very, very important first step you have to start with, and that is what? Which direction you aim the gun, right? Because if the target's over here and you start out facing this way, probably not going to go real well for you in terms of your shooting score or however they do that, right? The most important thing first, the first step, is to aim your gun towards the target. Then you can pull the trigger and the gunpowder goes off and the bullet flies out of the barrel and it flies through the air closer and closer to the target until it finally makes contact and everybody cheers because you hit a bullseye or whatever it is. But the first step is you have to be headed in the right direction. Same thing with wisdom and knowledge. If you start out with the wrong assumptions, with an atheistic viewpoint, with a humanist mindset, and you're trying to figure out life based on all these wrong assumptions, it's like you're heading the opposite way from the right target. You're never going to get there under those assumptions. So before you start to figure anything else about life, you have to have the right set of understanding. You have to have a fear of God and who He is, and acknowledgement that He exists and that He rules the universe and that His word is right. Then you can proceed to learn what that word is and what His wisdom includes and what it really stands for. Then you're headed in the right direction. Now, fear of God is just the beginning. I mean, there's a lot more to learn than just that, but that's a foundational, that's a critical first step in understanding life in general. So you can be smart and be atheistic, but you can't really have a good understanding of wisdom and life and the meaning of everything if you don't have an understanding of who God is. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and then you grow on from there. And then again, he flips it upside down like we talked before. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. The foolish person is the one who says, I don't think I need what God says. I don't really want to believe Him. I don't want to follow His word. I can figure it out my own self. I'm going to go my own way. I know the target's over there, but I'm going to shoot that way and then be surprised when I don't hit the target. So that's what the fool says. So he continues on throughout the rest of the chapter. The rest of the chapter sets up, or starts to set up anyway, the conflict between wisdom and foolishness. And for the first 9 chapters, we're really going to set up the competition or the conflict between wisdom and foolishness. And it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly. You have to choose one way or the other. Either I will submit myself to the wisdom that God provides, or I will go my own way. One or two of these options. And I want to just read kind of an extended passage here so you get a feel for what this is. This is really the father talking to his son. In fact, he says multiple times throughout these next several chapters, "Hear my son," or "My son, listen," or I'm talking to you, son," or "Hear the instruction of a father." This is Father Solomon talking to his son or sons, saying, "Get wisdom." By the way, just as a side point, who was Solomon's son? At least the one who inherited the throne after him. I'm sure he had multiple sons. Who's the son that followed Solomon? I believe it was Rehoboam, right? Yeah, Rehoboam. How much of Solomon's wisdom seems to have transferred to Rehoboam? Not a whole lot, did it? Rehoboam just took over the kingdom, and it wasn't long until the people came to him and said, "Give us a break. Your dad overtaxed us. There's a lot going on. Take it easy on us." And you remember what Rehoboam did? He went to the elder advisors, and the elder advisors say, "Yes, give them what they want now, and they'll love you for life. You can establish your kingdom, and then you can do what you want to do." He said, "I don't know. I'm going to talk to my buddies who I grew up with, the young guys that are more, they're more in tune with society, and they're hip, and they're cool, and all this kind of stuff." And so he goes to his young friend advisors, and they say, "Show him who's boss. If your dad was tough, I'm going to be tougher. You need to intimidate him into submission. You need to let him know who's in charge here." He thinks it over and says, yeah, I'm going to go with my buddies. And so he goes back to the people and he says, if you think my dad was tough, I'm going to be even tougher. If you think his taxes were high, I'm going to raise them to double and triple. And if you think he was harsh, I'm going to be even harsher. And the people said, what? Phooey on you. We're out. And the nation split. And he lost 80%, 80-some whatever percent of the kingdom right off the bat. He had no wisdom. So it makes you almost wonder when Solomon wrote this and he says, my son, get instruction. My son, learn understanding. My son, this is important. This will govern your life if you can grasp it. But if not, it will destroy you. Do you think he kind of knew what his son was going to be like? Do you think he saw him growing up and said, man, this kid better learn something or it's going to be bad news for him and for the kingdom. I'm going to write this book just to him so he understands the importance of having wisdom and understanding and thinking things through and seeing things from God's point of view. He wrote this book just for him. And for whatever reason, Rehoboam, he didn't seem to get it. He did not seem to read it. And it cost him so much, so much. He lost the kingdom because of this. Well, kind of because of this. I mean, the Bible says it was really as a judgment on some of the decisions that Solomon himself made earlier in his reign. And that God he preserved the kingdom throughout Solomon's reign, and he said, I'll kind of take this out on your son. But that played out in foolish behavior on Rehoboam's part, so it was kind of a group effort. But Solomon writes this to his son, and he's pleading, he's begging him. He says, please understand wisdom, see things from God's point of view. Put effort into understanding life. Here's what he says, chapter 1, verse 8. Hear, my son, your father's instruction. Forsake not your mother's teaching, for they are a graceful garland on your head and pendants for your neck. They will adorn you, they'll make you stand out. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Let us ambush the innocent without reason. Like Sheol, let us swallow them alive, the grave, and whole, like those who go down to the pit. We shall find all precious goods, and we shall fill our houses with plunder. Throw in your lot among us. We will all have one purse. If these guys come up to you and say, come on, let's commit crimes, let's vandalize, let's take advantage of people, let's cheat, let's steal. He says, don't go along with them. My son, verse 15, do not walk in the way with them. Hold back your foot from their paths, for their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed blood. For in vain a net is spread in the sight of any bird, but these men lie in wait for their own blood. Their own treachery will end up killing them. They set an ambush for their own lives. Such are the ways of everyone who is greedy for unjust gain. It takes away the life of its possessors. Your own foolishness will kill you. Everything you plan for everybody else, it will turn back against you, and you will be destroyed. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But verse 20, we see the other side of the coin here, don't we? Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the market, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy street, she cries out. And at the entrance of the city gate, she speaks. She says, how long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in scoffing and fools hate knowledge? How long are you going to live like this? Directionless, lacking understanding, just drifting through life, not really knowing what's going on, without a purpose, without a plan. How long are you going to do this? Verse 23. If you turn at my reproof, and that doesn't mean towards turn my instruction, that means turn away from the instruction. That's what it's talking about here. If you turn away from my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. Because I have called and you refuse to listen, and I've stretched out my hand and no one has heeded. Because you have ignored all of my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity, and I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me. When you ruin yourself, then you're going to say, oh, I've done something wrong, I've messed up my life. But I will not answer, wisdom says. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord, would have none of my counsel, and despised all my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their ways, and have their fill of their own devices. By the time they ignore me, and they ruin their lives, and bring disaster upon themselves, it will be, what? Too late. The damage will be done. And and there's nothing I can do for them. This is the time, simple person, young person, naive person, this is the time to turn to me and listen to me before you destroy your life, before all the damage is created in your life and you've run yourself off a cliff and it's too late. Now's the time to follow me, to follow God's advice, to fear him and do what he says. Verse 32, for the simple are killed by their turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease, without dread of disaster. If you just listen to me, I will keep you safe. I will keep you safe. And so you can clearly see here the warning against wickedness in verses 8 through 19, contrasting that with the call of wisdom, 20 through 33. And both mindsets, both worldviews are vying for the minds and the attention of the simple and the uninformed. Wisdom says, follow me, I will give you life. And foolishness says what? Come follow me, we'll have fun, we'll cheat, we'll steal, and we'll get rich quick, and it'll be a great time. Both kind of sound appealing, don't they? Which one will we choose? Well, the conflict continues. The instruction, the encouragement in chapters 2 through 4, and I'm not going to read it all, but just get a sense of the desperateness that Solomon is writing to his son, the importance that he places on understanding and wisdom in chapters 2 through 4. Pick it up in verse 1 of chapter 2. He says, my son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding, yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the path of justice and watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path, for wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. If you seek after him, he will show himself to you. You can be found by him. He wants to give you wisdom and understanding and take care of you and protect you through the wisdom that he gives. Verse 11, discretion will watch over you, understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men and perverted speech. He continues on, verse 16, so you'll be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. He continues on there to describe her and the evil and the treachery that she performs. Chapter 3 also continues. Chapter 3, verse 1, my son, do not forget my teaching. Verse 11, my son, do not despise the Lord's discipline. Verse 13, blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding, for the gain from her is better than gain from silver, and her profit is better than gold. You are so much better off searching for wisdom than you are for riches, because it will serve you so much better. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Who is the she that he's talking about here? Oh, good for you. Yeah, sometimes I get a whole bunch of different answers. He's kind of starting a little bit to personify wisdom, isn't it? We're starting to set up almost like two ladies, Lady Wisdom on one side and Lady Foolishness on the other side, competing for the attention of the passerby. She is more precious than jewels. Nothing you could desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, and on her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She's a tree of life to those who lay hold of her, and those who hold her fast are called blessed. He continues on. Again, I can't read it all. Verse 21, my son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. Chapter 4, verse 1, hear, O sons, a father's instructions, and be attentive that you may gain insight. Pick it up in verse 5 of chapter 4. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget, do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her, she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever you get insight. Prize her highly, she will exalt you. Are you starting to get the idea here? She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland, and she will bestow on you a beautiful crown. When my kids were little sometimes, and I really wanted to tell them something important and get their attention, this is when they're really little. I don't do this anymore. But they're 2, 3, 4 years old. Sometimes I'd really want to get their attention, so I'd go up and I'd put my hands on either side of their head, and I'd go forehead to forehead and nose to nose with them, so we're eyeball to eyeball. And very softly but very intensely, I would tell them what I wanted to tell them. And you know what? I had their attention, because we were eyeball to eyeball, and there's no looking anywhere else. That's kind of what I picture Solomon here doing to his son. He's putting his hands on either side of his head, going eyeball to eyeball, and he says, son, listen to this. Get wisdom, value understanding, seek out the fear of the Lord. This will protect you. This is what you will need when you grow up, as you start to rule and reign throughout your life. You will need this, Solomon says, as he's staring 1 inch away, eyeball to eyeball, with his son. This is important. And he says the same thing to us as we read it thousands and thousands of years later. The message is the same. He grabs you by the side of your head and he says, this is so important. Understand who God is. Understand what he requires. Understand the wisdom that he's giving to you. This will save you from destruction. Not just eternally, although that's true too, but even in this life, you will run your life off the rails if you don't get what God has to say. You absolutely will. And boy, don't I see that play out every day when I go to work in the secular workplace. And I could stand here and go down the list of desks in the room I'm at, telling the tragedy and horror stories of every single person almost that's in that room. The divorces, the splits, the abuses. Everybody has a tragic horror story, almost. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't really have a tragic horror story. I almost feel embarrassed that my life has, not turned out that way, because I don't have a story to share. But I mean, obviously that's silly. I'm glad I don't. But why do I? And I'm not saying I'm amazing or anything like that. But what's the difference? Well, fortunately, I kind of go by this, and they don't, and they're lost, and the lies are catastrophic. Some of them. And I think, wow, what a mess. And I'm sure if you work in a secular workplace, you could tell the exact same stories, because that's pretty much a universal thing. Wow, how important this is. Verse 10, chapter 4, hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. My son, verse 20 of chapter 4, be attentive to my words, incline your ear to my saying. Don't let them escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart. And in chapter 5, he, again, keeps saying the same thing, but he flips it upside down. Instead of encouraging wisdom, he starts to discourage or warn against foolishness. Chapter 5, verse 1, my son, be attentive to my wisdom. He says, incline your ear to my understanding, that you may keep discretion, and your lips may guard. For the lips of a forbidden woman drip honey, and her speech is smoother than oil. But the end, she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to the death. Her steps follow the path to Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life, and her ways wander. She does not know it. And now, O sons, listen to me. Do not depart from the words of my mouth. He starts to talk about a different woman, not Lady Wisdom. Who is this woman? For now, we'll just call her what? Lady Folly or Foolishness, or maybe even Lady Wickedness, whatever you want to call her. Lady Foolishness, we'll call her for now. And he starts to warn against this woman, who's also competing for his attention. And he goes on to describe her here and warn against her. I'm not going to read all of it, but he continues. Chapter 6, verse 1, my son, if you have put up security for a neighbor, if you've given pledge for a stranger, he goes on to give him instruction there. Chapter 6, verse 12, the worthless person, a wicked man, goes about with crooked speech, winks with his eyes and signals with his feet, points with his fingers. He's trying to deceive, he's trying to trick, he's trying to give secret signals. Winks with his eyes, signals with his feet, points with his fingers, with perverted heart devises evil, continually sowing discord. Therefore calamity will come upon him suddenly. In a moment he'll be broken beyond healing. Warning against the foolishness, warning against deviating from God's wisdom. Verse 20, my son, keep your father's commandment. Do not forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always. Tie them around your neck. They'll guide you. They'll lead you. He continues to warn against wickedness as he continues on. And so he does both. Folly will overtake you to the grave, chapter 5, verse 5. Brings deceit and dissension, chapter 6. Destruction without remedy. This is what foolishness will bring you. And so he concludes, he says what? On the one hand, he says, get wisdom. If nothing else, gain understanding for yourself. And on the flip side of that same coin, he says what? Avoid foolishness. Avoid folly, because it will destroy you. Chapter after chapter after chapter, he continues to do this. Till we get to chapter 7, and we kind of finally get to what I'll call the big showdown. This is when the two really come head to head, and they really start to compete for the attention of their listeners. Chapter 7, verse 1, again, my son, keep my words, treasure up my commandments with you, keep my commandments alive, keep my teaching as the apple of your eye, bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart, say to wisdom, you're my sister, and call insight your intimate friend, to keep you from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words. Step into my tent, let me show you what I have to sell you. Because if I can get you into my tent, my chances of making a sale go way up. And so I'm going to call to you in the street the simple person who has not made up their mind if they want to buy yet. I want to lure you into my tent so I can sell you what I have to sell you. Has anybody ever been to a festival, or if not, maybe the county fair or something? Has anybody never had that happen to them? All right, I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's the picture he gives there. He says, you're walking down the busy street, it's crowded, people are all over the place. But you get to the head of the street where the most traffic is. Everybody's busy, everybody's milling around, people are walking through, it's a high traffic area. And on either side of the street you have two tents, and each is selling a very different thing. On this side is Lady Foolishness, and on this side is Lady Wisdom. And both of them are calling out to the people in the street, come into my tent, see what I have to offer you. Because if you come into my tent, you're going to be following me, and I can influence you, and you will buy what I have to sell. And so he starts out by describing the tent on the left, maybe, Lady Foolishness, and see what kind of tent she has. See who it is making the sale. See if you can put a face to the concept here as he graphically describes this. Chapter 7, verse 6. At the window of my house, I looked out through the lattice. This is the guy who has a nap in the apartment. He's kind of looking down at the crowd. And he just gets kind of, watching the apple festivals. People walk up and down. And he observes this scene. At the window of my house, I looked out through my lattice, and I've seen among the simple, I've perceived among the youths a young man lacking sense. Here's a guy who's kind of aimless. He's just kind of wandering around, his hands are in his pockets. He doesn't really know what's going on, just looking at the scenery. Verse 8, passing along the street near her corner, taking the road to her house in the twilight, in the evening, at the time of night and darkness. And behold, the woman meets him, dressed as a prostitute, wily of heart. She's loud and wayward. Her feet do not stay at home. Now in the street, now in the market, and at every corner she lies in wait. She seizes him and kisses him, and with bold face she says to him, I had to offer sacrifices, and today I have paid my vows. I'm ready to go, she says. So now I've come out to meet you, to seek you eagerly, and I've found you. I've spread my couches with coverings, colored linens from Egypt, from Egyptian linen. I've perfumed my bed with myrrh and aloes and cinnamon. Come, let us take our fill of love till morning. Let us delight ourselves with love, for my husband is not at home. He is gone on a long journey. He took a bag of money with him. At full moon he will come home. We have plenty of time. It's not for 3 weeks yet. With much seductive speech she persuades him. With her smooth talk she compels him. All at once he follows her, as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as a stag caught in a fast, till arrows pierce his liver. As a bird rushes into a snare, he does not know that it will cost him his life. Descriptive visual picture of what Lady Foolishness looks like, isn't it? What characterizes Lady Foolishness here, or Lady Folly? What type of, if you were to describe her, what is she like? What kind of characteristics does she have? I'm sorry? Evil, perfect, yeah, pretty broad term, definitely evil, yeah. She's kind of tricky, isn't she? She's smooth, she's seductive, she can be appealing, she is deceitful, she's manipulative, yeah, she has ignorance because she doesn't think ahead of the consequences of what she's doing, both to herself and to her victims. She's impulsive, whatever I want right now, and we're going to have fun right now. Wickedness, evil, which is what I heard. These are the things that characterize Lady Foolishness, Lady Folly. And if we were to actually put a label or a title on her, a place in society, or give her a name, what would her name be? We have a face for her now, don't we? He gives her a face here. It gives her a name. What's the name? I think I heard Jezebel. I heard what? Yeah, I'm not going to say that one on microphone. Thank you. Yeah. Well, let's come up for a little bit more general of a name, shall we? Yeah, yeah. How about you guys? What if we maybe call her the adulteress or the prostitute? Now here, Solomon, is he warning specifically about adultery and prostitution? Yes, it certainly applies to that because she is the epitome of what this looks like. But even on a more broad scale, this is who he chooses to personify the foolish mindset of the world, because everything that she is, everything that she's like, represents what the foolish mindset of the world is. Give it to me now, live for this life, whatever feels good, follow your heart. That's the epitome of what this is like, and it's all kind of embodied in this adulteress or this prostitute who says, let's go have fun right now. I don't care about the devastation or what it will cost later or who it will hurt or what kind of damage it will do. Let's just go do it. Foolishness, craziness, ridiculously selfish and unbelievably short-sighted, but that's who Lady Folly or Lady Foolishness is. Verse 24, now, O sons, listen to me. Be attentive to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn to her sideways. Do not stray into her paths. For many a victim she has laid low, and all of her slain are a mighty throng. She destroyed thousands of people this way. Her house is the way to Sheol, the grave, to death, to destruction, going down to the chambers of death. Yikes, what a warning. What a vivid picture of who this is. But there are two sides to the street, aren't there? As we look off to this side, and there's Lady Foolishness' tent. And you can imagine what her tent is like, isn't it? It's got neon lights all over the place. It's got great big bright posters, and it's brightly colored, and there's pastel banners everywhere, and lots of pillows, and it's attractive. And it's very, I hate to use the word sensual because, I mean, it is, but I don't want to forget I said that word. That's too long of a discussion. We don't have time. But it's very seductive, isn't it, to bring you in and to lure you in. But there's another tent on the other side of the street, isn't there? Well, our attention is over here. Don't forget, there's somebody vying for our attention over on the other corner, isn't there? Chapter 8, verse 1. Does not wisdom call out? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Beside the gates in front of the town, at the entrance of the portal, she cries out to all the same places, to all the same people. She's making her appeal. She says, verse 4, to you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. From my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteousness. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. All are straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold, for wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight. I have strength. By me kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By me princes rule, and nobles and all who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield and choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the path of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me, and filling their treasuries. She continues on with her appeal through the chapter. Pick it up on verse 32. Now, O sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise. Do not neglect it. Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my doors. Whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me injures himself, and all who hate me love death. A very different kind of appeal from the opposite side of the street, isn't it? Well, we characterized Lady Foolishness with ignorance and impulsiveness and wickedness. What kinds of things? Well, first of all, who's on the other side of the street? Obviously, this is Lady Wisdom in chapters 8 and 9. Lady Wisdom, for sure. And he describes her appeal, and she has a very different set of instructions and a set of appeal. And in this verse, while in the previous chapter we put a name with Lady Foolishness, she was the adulteress or the wicked woman, the prostitute. What name does he apply to Lady Wisdom here? What name? He doesn't really give one, does he? He kind of leaves her faceless. He doesn't really apply a direct picture. He lets us know that she's appealing to everyone, that she's calling to her tent. What does her tent look like? It's a lot different than Lady Foolishness on the other side, isn't it? It's not nearly as gaudy, but it's very stately, very dignified. It has a direction. It has an intensity that Lady Foolishness does not. While Lady Foolishness says, let's come and have fun right now, forget the consequences later, Lady Wisdom says, but what I have to offer you is so much better, so much more long-lasting. It will keep you safe. It will give you success. It may not be as flashy right now. It doesn't have the neon signs and stuff, but boy, in the end, you will be so much further ahead. You'll be so much better off if you come into my tent and buy what I have for you. Better than silver, better than gold, better than anything else. Better than anything else she can offer you, I have to offer you. But he doesn't give her a name. We'll come back to that later. Chapter 9 kind of continues. Wisdom has built her house. She's hewn 7 pillars. She's preparing for those who want to come in. Summarizes in verse 10 of chapter 9, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years added to your life. If you're wise for yourself. But if you scoff, you alone will bear it. And looking back across the street, she kind of comments on her neighbor who's across the street. She says, the woman Folly, she's loud, she's seductive, but she knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, and she takes a seat at the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, those who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, turn in here. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are in there, and that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. As soon as they turn and walk into her tent, there's a trap door, and they fall through the floor, and they're trapped, and their life is over. And she points this out about her neighbor across the street. Watch out for her, because she will destroy you. What do you think? Does Solomon consider this maybe a little bit important? He's gone to great lengths to be very graphic and very picturesque about the warning of turning away from foolishness and embracing the knowledge God has for them. Super important, all-encompassing important, he says. This will preserve you. This choice, who you choose to follow, will determine how successful your life is. It just will. Do you want pain and heartache and devastation? Or do you want success and prosperity and peace and wisdom and insight? That's your choice. Make your decision. But he doesn't stop the book there. There are more chapters. He kind of turns the corner in chapter 10. In this center portion of Proverbs, we kind of leave Lady Foolishness and Lady Wisdom there for a while. We set them aside. Don't worry, we'll be back later. The center portion of the book of Proverbs, which makes up the bulk of the book, contains hundreds of independent sayings and wisdoms. It's one of the very few places in the Bible where it's pretty much okay to take a verse out of context. Why do I say that? Well, because there really isn't much of a context. Everywhere out, you'll hear me say context. Let's figure out what's going on. How does this fit with that? Proverbs is one of the few places we can kind of, for the most part, break that rule and read a single verse and be okay, because every verse is kind of a standalone saying. These verses contain advice on a multitude of topics: financial, social, moral, spiritual. Most of them directly contrast the fool with the wise man. Here's what the foolish man looks like. Here's what the wise man looks like. Also, there are Proverbs are observations and teaching on how life often works, or on how life should work. They're not always absolute promises or 100% guarantees for every situation. And I want to kind of put that out there cautiously, because sometimes you can read a proverb and it says something and you can say, wait a minute, but I can think of a situation where that maybe didn't work out so well. And I really don't think these are meant to be 100% all the time guarantees. These are the way life generally works, and here's how it should be. And if you're wise, here's how you will behave. You can still do wise things and have bad things happen to you. Sorry to break your bubble, but that's life in our fallen world. But generally speaking, The more wisdom you live by, the more successful your life. Can you still be gossiped against at work and gotten in trouble, even if you're doing everything rightly and wise? Yes. Can you still get the short end of the stick sometime? Yes. Can things still go wrong with you and catastrophes happen to you? Yes. But at least A, they hopefully won't be your fault, and B, that'll be a minority of the time. Most of the time things will go much better for you if you have this wisdom. So I just want to put that out there in case anybody comes across a verse and they say, wait a minute, I can think of an example in my life where this didn't work out so well. I did what was right and I still got messed up by somebody else. That can happen. We live in a fallen world. Don't worry, God will set everything right someday, but this is not that day. Okay? How do you approach a section of a book like this that has no context, no real flow, and it's just a whole bunch of different proverbs put together? How do you do it? Well, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick 2 topics that are covered here, and we're just going to go through these topics, pick out a few verses about those topics so we can get a flavor and a feel for how this works, and we'll go on that way. I'm going to pick out 2 topics. Speech is a big one. Solomon spends a lot of time on speech and the tongue, almost disproportionately so from what you might expect, but a lot of what he says in here is how we talk and how we respond and how we speak and what we say and what we don't say. And so I want to kind of tackle that one. There's a bunch of different facets to our speech and what we say, speaking rashly and impulsively, hastily, slanderously, and also there's good speech too he addresses, speaking wise things and constructive criticism and good instruction. He covers both. And then also work ethic is another one I thought I'd touch on just because that's a fun one. He addresses that too. Like I said before, he also talks about finances and relationships and social stuff, all different areas of life that he addresses throughout this portion of the book. Unfortunately, we only have a 45-minute class period today, and it is 2 minutes till we have to dismiss, so I'm not going to really get into it. But next week, we'll come back and we'll get a flavor and a feel for what some of these bits of wisdom Solomon has for us as we try to soak up and ingest the wisdom that God has for us through Solomon in this book. So if you want to read ahead, and if you're in that habit, again, dive into Proverbs chapter 10 through the end of the book, and that's what we'll cover next week. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for this morning. We can look into your word again, the book of Proverbs. You spent an amazing amount of time having Solomon write not even what wisdom is, but just how important wisdom is to receive. Sometimes I think we kind of minimize that and don't really comprehend the gravity of the effect that your wisdom has on our life, but it clearly does, and you went to great lengths here to be very graphic in your description of the importance of wisdom versus foolishness. Help everybody in here to be aware and I guess intentional is the word about the way they live their lives. Help them to consciously choose to follow in wisdom's tent and not lady foolishness, so that A, we can please you, which is most important, and B, have a better life for ourselves and not have the train wreck catastrophe stories that so many people in the world have. Protect us from that by giving us your wisdom. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thank you very much, and we'll continue next week.